Welcome to this week's live Q&A. I'm happy to be with you here today. My name is Vanya Fatidis, and I'm the founder of Peaceful Eating, where I help people around the world come to a place of ease and peace with food and their bodies. And each week I respond to questions and do the best I can to answer as many as I can in the time that I have. So this week I have three questions that I think most people are going to respond to, to relate to in some way. So the questions are really about how to stop binge eating, how to start eating the foods that you fear, and what to do when you are reaching for sugary snacks when you're not hungry, but there are other things going on, like, for example, tiredness. So that's what we have in store for today. I'm also going to tell you a little bit about my upcoming course, How to Live a Life of Peace with Food, which is starting on the 16th of July. So I'm going to be talking about that after I've answered the questions. So if you're interested, keep watching till the end. All right, so let me get started. So the first question I'm dealing with today is, one thing I want to do just remind you of is most of the time the people who are sending me questions, I don't know, and I don't know very much about their history. So sometimes I do try to ask supplementary questions to get a bit more information, but sometimes I'm not able to get that. So I'm kind of taking the questions at face value and doing the best I can to respond to them in that way. All right, so the first one is, when I wake up, I binge eat ridiculous amounts of sugary foods, cakes, sweets, biscuits, etc. Every morning I tell myself not to do it, but I do. I feel this is my major downfall as I've started my day off so badly. I've eaten a family bag of chocolate caramels already this morning. How do I stop this horrible cycle? Okay, well, the first thing I want to say to you is please have some compassion for yourself. I really do understand that this is frustrating. You probably are angry with yourself. And compassion is so important in this work because we've spent so long fighting with ourselves, criticizing ourselves, hating our bodies. And what I want you to know is actually the binge eating is not your fault. And to be truthful, even if it were your fault, I would still recommend that you call on some compassion. Let me just have a drink. I can feel my throat is crackly. So the first thing I would suggest to you is to be kind to yourself and give yourself some compassion, right? You're suffering and this is hard. So please be kind to yourself as really a first step, no matter what your behavior. Be kind to yourself. Then I do want you to know it's not your fault. The reason that you're binge eating is because you are restricting. Let me explain what I mean by restricting. So, restricting can be dieting, but it can also be trying to be healthy without actually following a prescribed diet. It could be trying to incorporate lifestyle changes. It could be trying to eat clean. It's got all sorts of different ways of being described or ways of being named, but in effect, what it is a type of restriction. Trying not to eat sugar or cutting down on whatever it is, sugar, carbs, fat, whatever. All of these are different types of restriction. Now, you might find that actually you're not restricting per se, right? You might not be very successful at the moment at following through on the diet. But when you say to me every morning I tell myself not to do it, what you're then doing is you are mentally restricting yourself. So you are telling yourself you shouldn't be doing this, you mustn't do it. And so what I was going to say is there's two types of restriction. There's the physical restriction, which I've just described, all the different sort of ways of physically cutting out food groups or types of foods, cutting down, dieting, etc. And then there's mental restriction, which is where you have all these rules about what you tell yourself you should and shouldn't be eating. And underneath all of this is a desire to control your weight, or a desire to, yeah, control your weight as in lose weight, or control your weight as in not gain any weight. And this is what's driving the behavior. So when you're restricting, whether it's physically actually doing it or whether it's mentally telling yourself, I mustn't do it, tomorrow I'll be better, tomorrow I'll be good, tomorrow I'll start again, or, you know, just after I finish this bag, I'll get it out the way and then I'll, won't buy any more, and then this is all mental restriction. It's perceived by your brain as a deprivation. And our bodies and brains don't like to be deprived. So this is what is then driving the desire for the whatever it is, the foods that you think you shouldn't be eating. So how do you stop? Well, you need to stop trying to control your weight, and you need to stop dieting in whatever shape or form it might be manifesting. Even if you don't call it a diet, it's about the control. And what you need to start to do is start to relearn, because you do know how to do this. You used to do this when you were a little baby. I don't know how long this has been going on for you, but there was a time in your life where eating was natural, eating was easy. You knew when you were hungry, you knew when you were full, you knew what you wanted, you knew when you were satisfied. And it wasn't so complicated. And then something came along to disrupt that for you. And my guess is that what came along to disrupt it was dissatisfaction with your body. So you learned somewhere along the way that your body wasn't okay as it was and that you should try and shrink it. And that's where the dysfunction with food came from. So what you need to do is stop trying to lose weight and stop trying to control your body and control food, and come back into your body and learn how to again start to take your cues for eating from your body, from your hunger, from your fullness, from your satisfaction. But I've got to say, this isn't easy work. It's been going on for some time, and there's a lot of stuff that you've learned through dieting or through diet culture, even if you haven't been actually, going to Weight Watchers or whatever. Dare I even say those words? They're a bit like Voldemort. Don't dare say those words. But um, it's you've been conditioned by diet mentality and diet culture into believing all sorts of things about food and believing all sorts of things about yourself. Like you can't be in control. You're addicted. Once you start, you can't stop. You've learned all of these ideas. And I really want to challenge those ideas and tell you that they're not true. You might really benefit from my course. So I hope that you will stay to the end of this and listen up, because I think I could help you, with this. It's hard to do alone. All right, let me move on to the second question. I think I've got it over there. All right. So, how do I start to eat foods that I'm afraid of? So, that wasn't the actual original question of the person. I have just preceded. We did have a little back and forth, and what I do know is that this person is recovering from an eating disorder, a restrictive eating disorder. So at least I do have that bit of information. So I think I'm going to maybe approach this maybe a little bit differently. And I think what you need to work on is two levels. The first is to unpack what the fear is all about. Why are you fearing particular foods? um, we have had a little back and forth. We did manage to get that far, and what you said to me is that you fear weight gain. Um, so, what is it about weight gain that you fear? Again, we had a little bit of back and forth with the question, and what you came up with is that you fear that you will lose the benefits that you have in your thinner body if you gain weight. That there is a thing called thin privilege, right? And there is a thing called thin privilege because there is a thing called weight stigma or fat phobia that is rampant in our culture. There are a lot of beliefs, faulty beliefs about what fatness means, what a fat body means. That it means the person is lazy, is unhealthy, is doesn't have control over their life, is emotionally stunted, maybe, is unreliable. They're just on and on. You can think for yourself what you associate fatness with, or what you've learned, or what you've seen, because it's in our culture all over, right? We see it in movies. We see the jibes that are pointed at fat people, uh, whoever they may be. So if you've got thin privilege and you see the treatment of fat people around you, then it makes complete sense that you would want to hold on to your thin privilege. So, what I suggest you do is have compassion for yourself. This again is hard. It's not as hard as, a fat person actually experiencing the stigma directly, but you are also suffering, right? And you have suffered a lot with your eating disorder. So I would really have compassion for yourself as a first port of call, should we say? So what are you believing will happen if you gain weight? That you will lose the attention that you've been receiving while you've had an eating disorder, while you've been so ill. The care, the concern, etc., that you've received from people. So that's something to really explore for yourself. These are what I would call the payoffs or the benefits of staying where you are. But there's a flip side to this, right? There are costs too. And I really want you to consider what are the costs for not fully recovering and not fully letting your body be the size that your body is healthiest and happiest at. What are the costs of that? Some things you can consider. Well, um, it might cost you, I've got some notes here, sorry. It might cost you your personal growth, right? Because not completing this process for yourself means that you don't fully recover from it. You don't ever move past it. You stay in somewhat of a trap. Yes, your life might not be a risk anymore, but you aren't fully free. So it will cost you your full freedom. It might cost you finding out that in fact you are loved and cared about beyond the illness, that actually you are undeniably lovable. While you're staying stuck, you've probably holding on to a belief in some way that the care and the attention that you receive is because of the illness rather than because you are loved. So staying stuck then stops you from really ever knowing that you are loved despite or, regardless of your mental or physical health. And it potentially can cost you a life beyond the illness. So these are just some things to consider. I'm not trying to convince you, but I think it's helpful to really explore these different things. And then there's another part to this, which is, what is it that you want for yourself in your life? And I would recommend you look at episode 14 of the Q&A, because the whole of that episode, well, most of it, I think all of the questions, somehow there was a theme around the questions, and they all pointed to motivation. And I spent quite a bit of time really um, unpicking motivation and exploring that. So I recommend you go and watch episode 14 and look at that, because really when we have something that deeply matters to us and we know why it really matters to us, what is it that you want for yourself and why, then that can carry us through the icky sticky stuff of having to deal in the moment with eating the fear food, because you have a bigger purpose for yourself. um, and that can help us um, be with the discomfort and move through it. So I don't know, that might be a different answer to the one that you were expecting. In terms of how do you actually eat the fear food, I think this other work comes first, and then maybe when you've done that, we can explore the next piece of that. So let me know how that goes and if that's helpful at all. All right, so let me go on to the last question. How to stop eating when you're physically not hungry but have an overwhelming urge to eat sugary food. This tends to be more intense when I'm tired and don't have the energy to pause between feeling the urge and acting on it. So the question that I have for you is, are you trying not to eat sugary foods in general? Are you trying to control your weight? My guess is that you are, and that this is the backdrop to what you find is happening when you keep reaching for the sugary foods, even though you're not hungry, even though you might not really be desiring them particularly. And so the thing is that when you have your eating, um, when your eating is not being directed by your body's signals, but rather your eating is generally under your conscious cognitive control, right? You're thinking around, yes, I'm going to be healthy and I'm going to have a healthy lunch or whatever it is. And you're making these decisions based on what you believe will control your weight in some way. Then you're not taking your cues from your body. And the thing is, your conscious cognitive control is limited. And when you are under strain or stress, whether it's physical or emotional, your conscious cognitive control gets depleted. And so then the thing that you've been depriving yourself of, and if you go back to the first question, I spent quite a bit of time talking about that, about mental deprivation or physical deprivation. So whichever one it is, when your conscious cognitive control is depleted and your defenses are then down, you're going to be eating in response to the previous deprivation, whether that deprivation is physical or mental. So does that make sense? So that's probably why you're reaching for those sugary foods when you're feeling tired, because you don't have the capacity at that time to be controlling from your mind what you're eating. And what I find with my clients is that when you learn how to let go of trying to control your weight, and you learn how to try to listen to your body and eat as a response to your physical signals, and to some degree your emotional signals, but you're really able to make that discernment, then this doesn't really happen very much. But I will add one caveat, and that is that if you're tired and you find that it's tiredness is your consistent pattern and it's really only happening with tiredness, not at other times, you're not doing other emotional eating, so called, then um, what's what the sugar can do is just give you a temporary boost and it'll help you push through your tiredness so that you can keep going. So, if this is the case for you, then you need to really think about whether you want to live your life in that way and not give yourself the rest that you actually need. And it might be that your life is such that actually you don't have options. You know, unfortunately, it's very wrong that this is the case. But for some people, getting adequate rest is a function of their privilege. And that is deeply wrong in our culture. But it is the case for many, many, many people. And if this is the case for you, then you just have to do what you have to do. If eating the sugary food is what you need to do so that you can keep going because you literally don't have options, then I that's what you have to do, right? That's really a part of your survival because otherwise you won't be able to push yourself through. But if just think about it carefully, are there really no options? Or are there things that you could be letting go of? And I'm going to segue nicely now into my course because actually we do talk about this quite a bit on my course about learning how to meet your needs without reaching for food by default, right? It's fine to reach for food, but you might be meeting a whole bunch of your needs with food, um, and that's ultimately not very satisfying for us to live our lives like that. So we can learn how to let go of the diet mentality, learn how to listen to our bodies, and we can also learn how to listen to our other needs and learn how to meet them in ways that actually do satisfy that need and meet it at the end of the day. So I hope that's making sense to you. So my course, How to Live a Life of Peace with Food, is starting on the 16th of July, and it's 12 weeks. It's just awesome. In fact, I say it's a course, it's really a coaching program. We meet every week on Zoom, and you actually have personalized coaching. It's not the sort of thing where like with these live things where you type your question and then I answer it. It's not that. We actually get to talk, you and me, in the Zoom room, and everybody gets a turn to just be you and me. It's not a group conversation. It is you get direct coaching. I help you to unravel the things that are getting in your way of really being free with food and being able to accept your own body or at least feel neutral about it and start to live your life in the way that you want to be living your life. To put your attention on the things that really matter to you and have this icky sticky situation around food be a thing of the past. So I hope you'll join me or consider joining me. If anybody is interested and you're really not sure if it's a fit for you, please send me an email because I've got 15-minute slots available to talk to anybody who's got questions or concerns, wants to know more about it. It's not enough what's on the website. And by the way, if you want to find out more, then go to peacefuleating.co.uk / how to live a life of peace with food, all hyphenated words. Or you can just go to peacefuleating.co.uk, click on online courses and how to live a life of peace with food, and you will find a lot of information there. So I hope to hear from some of you. I can't wait to get started. I think it's a magical experience, and people have had a lot of success and relief from doing the course. You learn so much that you can really apply to all areas of your life. All right, that's enough from me. Have a great week. And do know that if you want to ask me a question, you can send me one on any of the social media handles where I am or via my website. Take care and have a great week. Bye for now.